It was one of those quiet evenings where the house felt too still, like something was hanging in the air, waiting to be noticed. I had just finished cleaning up after dinner. My wife had gone out to visit her sister for a couple of days, and it was just me and my stepdaughter Alina at home. She's 16, quiet, thoughtful, a little guarded, always has been since I came into her life. We've never had any big issues between us, but she keeps to herself more than most teenagers. I always gave her space, thinking maybe time would help her open up. But nothing prepared me for what she said that night. We were sitting in the living room, each caught up in our own world, me flipping through the TV channels and her scrolling through her phone, curled up in the corner of the couch. The soft hum of the fan was the only sound for a while. Then out of nowhere she looked up at me. Her eyes didn't carry their usual indifference. They looked tired, maybe a little lost. And then she said it, almost like a whisper but with weight behind every word. "Sometimes I wish it was just you and me." I froze. My hand hovered over the remote, my mind scrambling to make sense of what she meant. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. There was no smile, no playful tone. It was raw, honest, and deeply unsettling. I didn't know how to respond. 1,000 questions ran through my head. Was she upset with her mom? Was something bothering her? Was this a cry for help that I had missed all along? I looked at her, trying to read her face, but she'd already turned her gaze back to her phone, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb in the middle of a perfectly normal evening. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but I was scared of the answer. Scared that maybe there was more going on under the surface than any of us had noticed. Maybe I'd been so focused on being a supportive husband that I hadn't realized my stepdaughter was quietly unraveling. That night marked the beginning of a shift between us. Things I once brushed off now seemed important. The silence, the long stares, the moments she seemed like she wanted to speak but never did. And suddenly I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to understand what she truly meant by those words. Because when a teenage girl looks you in the eye and says she wishes it were just the two of you, there's always more to the story. What came next forced me to look at everything differently. Not just as a stepfather, but as someone who might have missed the signs too long. And that's where everything changed. That night I barely slept. Her words kept echoing in my head. "Sometimes I wish it was just you and me." I turned those words over again and again, trying to make sense of them. Was she unhappy at home? Was she feeling left out? Or like she didn't belong? Or was it something deeper, something I hadn't seen coming? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I actually knew about what went on inside her world. Alina wasn't the kind of teenager who acted out or caused trouble. She wasn't loud, didn't slam doors, never shouted. But maybe that made it easier for everyone to assume she was fine. Maybe silence had become her way of screaming without making a sound. She had been around 12 when I married her mom. She never seemed fully comfortable calling me dad. And I never pushed her to. I figured trust took time. But maybe I was too passive. Maybe she needed someone to ask her the hard questions. Over the next few days I tried watching her more closely. Not in an obvious way, but enough to notice the little things. She avoided phone calls, always wore her earbuds even when the house was quiet. Her eyes looked tired, and she was jumpier than usual. One night, I passed by her room and saw her quickly swipe her phone screen off. She noticed me watching, and for a second, there was that same look in her eyes, like she wanted to speak but didn't know how. I started thinking back. Had there been other signs? Times when she might have tried to reach out and I missed it? A few weeks ago, her mom mentioned that Alina had been more distant lately. She chalked it up to teenage mood swings. But now, looking at the bigger picture, I wasn't so sure. And there was another thing. She didn't seem all that eager for her mom to come back from her trip. Most kids would count the hours until their mom returned, but Alina? She seemed calm, settled in a way. As if things were easier with just the two of us in the house. It wasn't something she said outright, but it was in the way she acted. Less tense, less guarded, but still quiet. I wanted to talk to her to ask her what she meant that night. But I also knew that pushing her too hard could backfire. She was already holding something in, and the last thing I wanted was to make her shut down even more. So I waited. I listened. And I kept replaying that sentence in my head, because there was something beneath it. Something unspoken that I couldn't ignore anymore. And as much as I wanted to believe everything at home was okay, I was starting to see cracks I hadn't seen before. Then one evening, just when I thought things had settled back to normal, I found something that shook me. Something in her room I wasn't meant to see. And that changed everything. I hadn't meant to go into her room. Honestly, I was just passing by when I noticed her door slightly open, the lights off, but her laptop still glowing on the desk. She was in the shower, and something about that open door just pulled at me. Maybe it was the worry building up in me over the past few days, or maybe it was just instinct. Either way, I stepped in. Her room was tidy, nothing out of place, almost too tidy for a teenager. But it wasn't the room itself that stopped me. It was the notebook half hidden beneath the edge of the laptop. I hesitated. I knew it wasn't right to snoop, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to tell me something without saying it out loud. I picked it up and flipped to the middle, and what I saw made my stomach knot up. It was a page filled with thoughts. Raw, scattered sentences like they'd come out faster than she could write them. Asterisk. I feel like I'm just extra. Like I'm in the way. Asterisk, asterisk. Why doesn't she see how I feel? Asterisk, asterisk. He notices me more than she ever has. Asterisk. I didn't understand all of it, but one thing was clear. Alina was hurting. And it wasn't just teenage mood swings. It went deeper. I quickly put the notebook back before she came out. When I walked out of her room, I couldn't shake the guilt for looking, but I also knew I'd seen something important. Something that confirmed what I'd been feeling for weeks now. She felt invisible to her own mom. And maybe I'd become the only person she felt connected to, even if she didn't say it outright. Later that night, I watched her from across the dinner table. She barely touched her food, just pushed it around with her fork. I tried to act normal, but everything felt different now. I wanted to reach across the table and tell her she wasn't alone. That I'd seen her pain and I cared. But I didn't know how without making her feel exposed. So instead I asked gently, "You doing okay lately?" She paused, then nodded without looking up. "Yeah," she said. "Just tired." That word. Asterisk, tired, asterisk. It hit differently now. I started to wonder if her mom had any idea how distant Alina really felt from her. My wife loved her, I knew that, but she could be strict, even cold when it came to emotions. Their conversations were often short, surface level. Sometimes Alina would talk more with me than with her own mother. That always seemed strange, but I never gave it much thought until now. And then there was the message I found the next morning. Scribbled on a sticky note near the kitchen sink, probably written late at night. It said, asterisk, thanks for not treating me like I'm invisible. Asterisk, no name, no signature. But I knew who it was from. That small note felt huge. It made everything real. She was reaching out. Quietly, carefully. And I needed to figure out what was going on before it was too late. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope. I tried to keep everything normal, but inside I was torn between wanting to protect Alina and needing to understand what she wasn't saying. She was more present now, spending more time in the kitchen when I cooked, sitting in the living room while I watched TV, even offering to help clean up. None of this had happened before. It was like she was trying to create moments to be near me. And while I didn't want to assume anything, I couldn't deny it felt intentional. But what made everything more complicated was how her mood shifted whenever her mom called. Alina would go to her room, shut the door, and come out quiet, withdrawn. I once overheard part of a conversation through the hallway. Her voice was flat. "Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm fine." Then silence. No warmth, no laughter, just that same tired tone. It was clear something between them wasn't right. And I was caught in the middle of it, unsure of how to help without crossing a line. One night, after another silent dinner, I sat out on the back porch to clear my head. The air was heavy and I could feel the pressure building. That's when Alina came outside too. She sat on the steps a few feet away, arms wrapped around her knees. We sat in silence for a while until she finally spoke. Do you ever feel like people only care about the version of you that's useful to them? I didn't know how to answer right away. Her voice was soft, but there was frustration in it, sadness too. I said, sometimes. But the people who really care want the real version of you. Not just what you can do for them. She nodded slowly, then looked at me. That same look again, the one from the first night. Full of something she hadn't figured out how to say. I feel like when Mom's around I disappear. Like I'm just in the way. But when it's just us, I don't feel that. My heart pounded. It wasn't just the words, it was how vulnerable they were. She was opening up slowly, but there was more beneath it. Something she still couldn't say out loud. Something waiting. Later that night, after she went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. I kept replaying everything, her note, her questions, the way she looked at me. And then I remembered the notebook. I went back into her room when she was asleep. I didn't want to invade her privacy again, but I needed to know what she wasn't saying. I found the notebook tucked beneath a blanket this time. I opened it and turned to the latest page. It was dated just 2 nights ago. It read, asterisk, I wish I could just tell him everything, but I'm scared he'll think I'm weird. Or worse, that he won't want to be around me anymore. Asterisk, that was the moment I knew this wasn't just about her relationship with her mom. It was something deeper, something personal, and whatever it was about me. And now, everything was heading toward a moment I could no longer avoid. I didn't sleep that night. Her words from the notebook stuck in my head like a whisper I couldn't shut out. I wish I could just tell him everything. It hit different. Not because of what she might say, but because of the fear behind it. What was she holding back? And why was she so sure it would change how I saw her? The next morning, everything looked the same on the surface. Alina made herself toast, nodded a quiet good morning, and disappeared into her room. But I could feel it now, an invisible weight sitting between us. She knew I sensed something, and I think she was waiting for me to ask. But I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear what might come out. Around noon, my wife called to say she'd be home that evening. I mentioned it casually to Alina, expecting some reaction, but she barely blinked. Cool, she said and went back to scrolling on her phone. But later, I heard her crying softly in the bathroom. The door was locked. I didn't knock. I just stood outside, helpless. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. A few hours later, while tidying the living room before my wife returned, I noticed something behind the couch cushions. A crumpled envelope. I picked it up, figuring it was just old junk mail, until I saw my name written on the front, in Alina's handwriting. My heart sank as I opened it. Inside was a letter, half-finished, maybe never meant to be read. She wrote about how different things felt when her mom wasn't around. How being alone with me felt safe. But the part that stopped me cold was near the end. Asterisk. Sometimes I wonder if Mom even notices how much she pulls away from me. Or how much I wish you were my real dad. But it's confusing. Because part of me feels bad for even thinking that. Asterisk, it wasn't just sadness. It was guilt, confusion, and longing all tangled together. This wasn't about a crush or teenage infatuation. It was deeper. She felt emotionally abandoned by her mother. And I'd unknowingly become the only adult in her life who saw her, really saw her. But that kind of attention, when you've been invisible for so long, can feel like something else. Something she didn't have the words for. Then, just when I was trying to process the letter, I heard a voice behind me. Did you read it? I turned and there she was, standing in the hallway, eyes red but steady. She knew what I'd found. And in that moment, something between us cracked open. Not just because of the letter, but because there were no more secrets now. But before either of us could speak, the front door opened. My wife had come home. and everything that had been buried under silence, confusion, and tension was now seconds away from colliding. My wife stepped through the door, suitcase in one hand, phone in the other, already talking loudly about how terrible the traffic had been. She didn't notice our frozen faces at first, me still holding the letter, Alina standing just behind me in the hallway. But the silence in the room eventually made her stop mid-sentence. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between us. I didn't say anything. I was still trying to figure out how to handle the moment gently. Alina looked down, her fingers gripping the edge of her sleeve tightly. The tension in the room was sharp, and I could feel her bracing for whatever came next. "I found this," I finally said, holding up the letter. My wife's eyes narrowed, confused at first, then anxious as she realized it was Alina's handwriting. She reached for it, but I pulled it back. "You should hear it from her." Alina took a deep breath, trembling a little, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "I wrote it because I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to tell you that I've been feeling alone. Like I don't matter." Her mother stood there, stunned. "Alina, what are you talking about? Of course you matter." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not really. Not when you're always too tired or distracted or annoyed with me." I stopped trying because I thought maybe you were just done trying too. The room went painfully quiet. My wife opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to deny everything. But then her expression shifted. I think she finally saw it. The pain, the distance, all the missed signs. She walked slowly to the couch and sat down. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" she whispered. "I didn't think you'd hear me," Alina said. "But he did." She glanced at me and I saw something new in her face. Relief, maybe, or just the weight of finally saying the words she'd held in for too long. My wife looked at me too, and for a second something unspoken passed between us. It wasn't anger. It was more like guilt, regret. But just as it seemed like everything was settling, just as the truth had finally cracked open and a path toward healing was forming, the real twist came. My wife pulled out her phone, scrolled quickly, and held it up. "Do either of you know what this is?" She pressed play. A voicemail started, one I hadn't heard before. It was from the school counselor. She mentioned Alina had missed 2 after-school appointments, that she had expressed feeling unsafe at home, but didn't elaborate. Alina's face drained of color. "I didn't mean you," she whispered to me, panicked. "I meant Mom. I meant the arguments, the yelling, the coldness. Not you." But it didn't matter. The words were out there now, and the damage was done. In trying to protect her, I might have become the very center of a misunderstanding that could change everything for all of us. For a long moment, no one said anything. The voicemail ended, leaving behind a tension that pressed against the walls. Alina looked like she wanted to run. My wife stared at me, unsure whether to defend herself or accuse. And me, I was stuck in the middle, feeling like everything we'd built had cracked open in the space of 30 seconds. I turned to Alina first. "You don't have to explain right now," I said softly. "I believe you." She nodded, eyes filled with tears, but also with something else, relief. Finally being heard, finally having the truth out there, even if it came the wrong way. My wife put her phone down and leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me it had gotten that bad?" "I didn't know." Her voice trailed off, shaking slightly. "Because every time I tried, it felt like you weren't listening," Alina said, not angry, just tired. "You always had something else going on. Or you just brushed it off. I wasn't trying to get anyone in trouble. I just wanted someone to understand." In that moment, something softened in my wife's face. Maybe it was seeing Alina this vulnerable. Maybe it was guilt finally catching up. Either way, she reached over, gently placing her hand over Alina's. "I should have seen it. I'm sorry." Alina didn't say anything, but she didn't pull away either. It was the beginning of something fragile but real. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Slowly, carefully. My wife agreed to go to a family therapist with Alina. It wasn't perfect. There were still tough conversations, awkward silences, but it was more than we had before. Alina started opening up more. She stopped hiding her notebooks. She even asked me to drive her to school a few mornings, which she never used to do. That letter, the one I found by accident, became a turning point. It didn't just open a conversation. It exposed all the layers we had ignored for too long. The emotional distance between mother and daughter. The way silence can build into something too heavy to carry. And how sometimes just listening without judgment can make all the difference. I still think about that night she looked at me and said, "Sometimes I wish it was just you and me." Back then I didn't know what she meant. Now I do. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about feeling safe, seen, understood. And maybe I had become that for her without realizing it. The truth is, being a stepdad comes with quiet responsibilities, ones that don't always come with clear rules. But I've learned that showing up consistently, and with heart, matters more than any title. In the end, Alina didn't need rescuing. She needed someone to believe her when she felt invisible. And maybe that's what this whole story was about. Sometimes the things that go unsaid speak the loudest. And listening, really listening, might just be the start of healing a home that forgot how to hear each other.